Here we will go through the answers for exercises 3 through 11 of the assigned material. The big takeaway from the lesson is that any circle can be written in the form x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals the radius squared, where h and k is the center and r is the radius. So if we have the center of the circle at 9, 0, and the radius of the circle is 7, I will just plug those numbers into the formula, or into the function. So we have x minus 9 squared plus y minus 0 squared equals 7 squared. And then we'll try to simplify it as much as we can. X minus 9 doesn't reduce. Y minus 0 is just the same as writing y. And 7 squared is 49. So the equation of a circle with a center at 9, 0 and a radius of 7 is x minus 9 squared plus y squared equals 49. For number 4, instead of being given a written description, we are given a graph that we just need to infer the information from. The center of this circle is at -2, 4. So if I plug those in, we'd have x minus -2 squared plus y minus 4 squared. And then the radius of the circle is the distance from the center to any point on the edge. So for this circle, the radius is 2. And again, we'll simplify as much as we can. Minus and negative turns into a plus. And then 2 squared is 4. So the equation of that circle is x plus 2 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 4. Now for number 5, we're given the equation and we need to read. So this, our standard is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals radius squared. So we'll just try to change it to match that a little bit. And 81 is the same as 9 squared. So the center is at -12, 4, and the radius is 9. Number 6, Petra is given the equation x minus 15 squared plus y plus 4 squared equals 100, and identifies it as its graph as a circle whose center is at -15, 4, and the radius is 10. So Petra's mistake is at the center of the circle. Because our equation is x minus and y minus by default, this is just a positive 15. The 4 should be a -4. So the center of our circle should be 15, -4. Though Petra did find the radius right, the radius is the square root of whatever number we have at the end. Square root of 100 is 10. So Petra did find the radius. The radius is 10. As we move on to number 7, now we're given the center and some other point. Really, this is just a distance formula question, because the radius is the distance from the center to any point on the edge. So we'll start with the distance formula. And we'll just plug in any relevant numbers we have. So x2 minus x1 are the two x coordinates, 12 and 3. And the y1, my2 minus y1 is the difference in the two y coordinates, so 12 and 10. And then we'll just go through and simplify this as much as we can. 9 squared is 81, 2 squared is 4. So the sum of 81 and 4 is 85. Now, if you type the square root of 85 in your calculator, you'll get something like 9.2, I'd imagine. but we'll just leave it as the square root of 85. We'll see why in just a second as we write the equation. So we were given the center already, and any equation or any circle can be written using the general form, or standard form rather. So h and k are the center. Our center is at 310, so x minus 3, y minus 10, and the radius we just found was the square root of 85. Here's why it didn't bother doing any rounding. Because squares and square roots cancel, our right-hand side of the equation is just going to simplify down to 85. Though the left-hand side doesn't have any way to simplify, so the equation of our circle is x minus 3 squared plus y minus 10 squared is equal to 85. On number 8, we have the center, or a circle whose center is at 2, -5 and is tangent to the x-axis. Now this word tangent means it just touches, it does not cross. So let's sketch what that should look like. We've got our center right here, and it just touches the x-axis. That means our distance here is 5. So the radius is 5. Now that we have the center and the radius, we can write the equation. The equation of the circle, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals the radius squared. H and k we were given. 2 and -5. The radius we just found was 5. And we'll simplify as much as we can. Minus the negative is a plus. And 5 squared is 25. For number 9, now we're given the diameter. A diameter is just 2 radiuses. Instead of going from center to edge, it goes from edge to edge through the center. So if we know how long the diameter is, we can cut that in half, and that's our radius. If we know 2 endpoints of our diameter, the center of the circle should be exactly halfway in between. Back in geometry, we learned the midpoint formula, but it really is just averaging the x's and the y's. So exactly in the middle of -3 and 17 is 14 divided by 2, which is 7. And exactly in the middle of 8 and 8 is 8. So the center of our circle is at the point 7, 8. Now the radius is going to go from our center to either edge. From 7, 8 to 17, 8, this is strictly horizontal because our y does not change. So the distance from 7 to 17 is 10. And we can work in the other direction too, from -3 to 7. That's also 10. So the radius of our circle is 10. Given both of these, now we can actually write the equation. If our center is at 7, 8, and our radius is at 10, the equation of the circle is x minus 7 squared plus y minus 8 squared equals 10 squared. And simplify that 10 squared to be 100. All right, number 10, we have 2 equations of circles given now. X squared plus y squared equals 25. And x minus 9 squared plus y minus 12 squared equals 100. The radii of each circle are just the square root of those numbers. The square root of 25 is 5, so the radius of the first circle is 5. The square root of 100 is 10, so the radius of the second circle is 10. Distance between centers, again, this is just a distance formula question. So the center of our first circle is 0, 0. The center of our second circle is 9, 12. So plugging that into our distance formula, we have 9 minus 0 squared plus 12 minus 0 squared, and then the square root. Now, those of you who know your Pythagorean triples might already be at the answer, but I'll still work through all the math. 9 squared is 81. 12 squared is 144. The sum of 81 and 144 is 225, and the square root of 225 is 15. So the distance between the two circles is 15. All right, so now we need to make a rough sketch of each of the circles and explain why they must be tangent to each other. And again, tangent means they will just barely touch, but not cross. So let's make a rough sketch. The first one has a center at 0, but a radius of 5. The second one has a center at 9, 12, but a radius of 10. So the reason they have to be tangent is we've said that the distance between the centers is 15, which is just big enough if this radius is 10 and this radius is 5. Because the sum of the radii is the distance between the centers, they will just barely touch without crossing. Finally, number 11. We're now given a circle where we have to either complete the square or factor to find the center, because this has the x minus h and the y minus k squared, each expanded out. Luckily, as we were going through our perfect square lesson, or our completing the square lesson, we began to recognize complete squares. X squared plus 2x plus 1 is really just x plus 1 squared. Similarly, y squared plus 4y plus 4 is just y plus 2 squared. So the center of our circle is at -1, -2. The radius of the circle is still just as easy to find. Square root of 121 is 11. So in order to determine the center and the radius, we had to, at least to determine the center, we had to factor each quadratic on the left-hand side. We had the x squared that we had to factor, and we had the y squared that we had to factor. Depending on how these look, they might not factor into a perfect square. So depending on the circumstance, we might end up having to actually complete the square. Thank you so much.